cheap drones, devastating precision. 4 civilians caught in the blast zone, injured when a storm of steel and flame ripped through more than just military ranks. It's 10:17 a.m. in Kherson, and an explosive chain of events is about to unfold. 7 vehicles destroyed, a convoy thrown into chaos, and a village left scarred. But here's the twist. This wasn't just a battlefield, it was someone's backyard. To understand how a routine supply run unraveled so quickly, and why the consequences reached far beyond the military, let's examine the anatomy of the ambush itself. The ambush. How 8 minutes changed everything. 11 vehicles moved in formation along the rural corridor, their route mapped with care through the roads hugging the Dnipro River. The convoy, fuel trucks, troop carriers, command vehicles advanced steadily toward the contested village of Tiahynka. For the Russian soldiers inside, this was another routine supply run, part of the logistical lifeblood that kept the front moving. But the quiet fields and tree lines concealed more than the usual risks of war. Above the convoy, Ukrainian surveillance drones hovered at altitude, their engines barely distinguishable above the hum of summer insects. These eyes in the sky relayed real-time video and telemetry to a concealed team deep within a forest 5 kilometers away. The operators, working in silence, watched every turn and pause, feeding data into their targeting systems. They weren't a large unit, but their coordination and focus made them effective. Their plan was not to overwhelm with numbers, but to strike decisively at the right moment. These retrofitted FPV drones, capable of 100 kilometers per hour and equipped with AI-aided targeting, gave the Ukrainian team surgical strike capability. Built from off-the-shelf components and enhanced with battlefield modifications, they could deliver high-explosive payloads with precision. Their guidance systems combined manual control with AI assistance, providing operators with an immersive, first-person view of the battlefield. This allowed for rapid adaptation and pinpoint accuracy, even as the situation on the ground changed second by second. The drones often evaded standard detection by virtue of their small size, as intercepted Russian communications later noted only vague reports of unmanned activity in the area. The Ukrainian team finished their final checks as the convoy entered a stretch of road boxed in by open farmland, a natural choke point with no easy escape. The decision to strike was made. At 10:17 a.m., the first drone launched, flying low and fast toward an armored fuel truck at the front of the column. The warhead detonated on impact, igniting a fireball and sending a column of smoke skyward. For a brief instant, the road fell silent. Then chaos erupted. Russian troops scrambled from their vehicles, scanning the tree line and fields for threats. Some tried to reverse, but the narrow road and burning wreckage blocked their path. The operators anticipated this reaction. Seconds later, a second drone streaked toward a command vehicle, striking with precision. The blast shattered what remained of the convoy's coordination. Smoke thickened, visibility dropped, and confusion spread quickly among the soldiers. A third drone targeted a troop carrier, followed by 2 more strikes on additional fuel trucks. Explosions tore through the line of vehicles, scattering debris and shrapnel across the fields. Each strike was calculated, timed to catch soldiers exposed and vehicles immobilized. By 10:25 a.m., the ambush was complete. 7 of the 11 vehicles lay destroyed or disabled. Fires burned along the road, and the blackened shells of trucks marked the sudden end of the mission. The speed and efficiency of the attack underscored the evolving nature of drone warfare. In just 8 minutes, a convoy intended to sustain Russian operations was reduced to ruins. The destroyed fuel trucks severed vital supply lines and signaled a new level of risk for any unit moving through contested territory. But the devastation did not remain confined to the military. The explosions and burning vehicles set off a chain reaction. Flames spread beyond the road, driven by wind and fueled by spilled fuel. This chain reaction ignited fires that spread into nearby homes, injuring 4 civilians, including a child, and damaging 2 houses in the outskirts of Tahhinka. The sudden overlap of military and civilian space brought new questions to the surface about the conduct of war, the risks to non-combatants, and the unpredictable consequences when battle lines blur. As the smoke drifted over the village and the sounds of combat faded, The reality for Tiahynka's residents was only beginning to take shape. The aftermath of the ambush would force everyone, soldiers, civilians, and commanders alike, to confront what happens when the front lines move into the heart of a community. Collateral damage, civilians in the crossfire. In Tahhinka, the sudden incursion of violence exposed the vulnerability of civilians living alongside the front. On July 22nd, the Russian convoy, seeking to avoid predictable kill zones, diverted into the outskirts of the village. This maneuver shifted the conflict from open fields directly into a populated area, a decision that would have immediate and devastating consequences for those who had remained behind. The village, with a population of around 200, had so far managed to avoid the worst of the fighting. Many residents were elderly or families unwilling to abandon their homes despite the risks. Children played in courtyards. Adults worked in gardens or patched roofs damaged by earlier shelling. That morning, the war arrived without warning. The initial drone strike, aimed at the convoy, triggered secondary explosions and fires that quickly spread beyond the immediate target. Shrapnel from burning vehicles tore through the village's edge. Fences splintered, windows shattered, and 2 homes were consumed by fire. A 5-year-old boy was injured by flying glass, while 3 other civilians suffered wounds from debris and collapsing structures. Eyewitnesses described confusion and fear as families rushed to shelter, uncertain whether the drones themselves were targeting them. One resident told emergency responders, "The drones didn't hit us. The fire from their vehicles did." The flames from destroyed Russian fuel trucks advanced toward residential clusters, compounding the chaos. Ukrainian officials attributed the civilian damage to Russian forces moving their vehicles into the village streets, a tactic seen repeatedly in the Kherson region. By positioning assets near homes, they complicated targeting decisions and increased the risk to non-combatants. This approach, Ukraine argued, was designed to exploit the presence of civilians for protection. One villager confirmed, "The Russians parked near our houses." The result was a chain reaction. Military vehicles destroyed in proximity to homes, with the subsequent fires and explosions causing civilian harm. Russia accused Ukraine of firing without proper target clearance, highlighting destroyed homes in state media and alleging humanitarian violations. Their narrative framed the strikes as indiscriminate, omitting the context of the convoy's location and the aftermath of the initial attacks. Russian outlets circulated images of charred buildings and injured villagers, but left out the condition of the military vehicles and the sequence of events that led to the destruction. This selective reporting fueled competing claims and deepened the information battle surrounding the incident. UN monitors say January saw short-range drones cause more casualties than any other weapon in Kherson region. The Human Rights Monitoring Mission in Ukraine, HRMMU, documented 223 civilian injuries from drone attacks last month alone, with drones accounting for 30% of all civilian injuries. The majority of these incidents occurred in frontline communities like Tiahynka, where the distinction between military and civilian space is often erased by the realities of the conflict. The HRMMU has also noted a sharp escalation in the use of drones throughout 2024, with the risk to civilians growing as the frequency and proximity of attacks increased. The Kherson region, particularly areas along the Dnipro River, has experienced a relentless pace of drone strikes. In March 2025, Governor Oleksandr Prokudin reported up to 700 drone attacks per week. This intensity has strained local emergency services and left civilians in a near-constant state of alert. The pattern of drone warfare, precision strikes in theory, but devastating in practice when conducted near populated zones, has made villages like Tiahynka especially susceptible to collateral damage. After the initial explosions, fires from the convoy spread quickly. Thick smoke blanketed the village, and emergency crews worked to contain secondary blazes. Alongside the 2 homes destroyed, 6 others suffered structural damage from fire and shrapnel. Families were displaced, forced to seek shelter elsewhere, even as the Russian convoy withdrew. For those affected, the distinction between direct and indirect harm offered little comfort. Their experience was one of loss, of property, security, and in some cases, physical well-being. Civilian accounts emphasized the indirect nature of the destruction. Residents did not see drones targeting their homes directly. Rather, The devastation resulted from the proximity of military targets to residential areas and the chain reaction that followed. "Their trucks brought this," said one villager, pointing to the Russian vehicles as the source of the disaster. Yet for those injured or displaced, the technicalities of targeting and intent were largely irrelevant. The consequences were immediate and severe. The growing use of drones in populated areas has shifted the ethical and legal debates around modern warfare. International humanitarian law requires a clear distinction between combatants and non-combatants, but in conflicts like this, both sides contribute to the erosion of that boundary. Whether through deliberate tactics or operational necessity, the result is the same. Civilians bear the brunt of precision weapons that are indifferent to their surroundings. The HRMMU's data underscores this reality. Short-range drones now account for a disproportionate share of civilian casualties, reflecting both technological trends and the evolving nature of the battlefield. As Tiahynka's residents surveyed the damage and weighed the risks of staying, the focus of investigators and analysts turned to the unit responsible for the ambush. The methods, timing, and precision of the attack pointed to a small, highly coordinated team operating with advanced intelligence. The emergence of such groups has begun to redefine the parameters of warfare in Ukraine, raising new questions about the future of conflict and the role of technology in shaping its outcomes. The Shadow Swarm. Small teams, big impact. Shadow Swarm, a 4-person squad, redefines battlefield norms. Their operations in Kherson, Zaporizhzhia, and Donetsk have left a clear signature. Small teams, equipped with commercial technology, achieving outsized results against heavily defended targets. This isn't a story of massive formations or overwhelming firepower. Instead, it's about agility, precision, and the tactical exploitation of accessible technology. Shadow Swarm is not organized like a conventional military unit. It is decentralized, highly mobile, and difficult to track. In the Kherson ambush, reports indicate that a 4-person cell operated just 3 kilometers from the target area. Using Starlink uplinks, they maintained secure communications and enabled real-time video relay from behind enemy lines. This proximity, combined with the ability to synchronize movements and targeting across dispersed teams, gave them a decisive edge. The unit's effectiveness comes not from numbers, but from the ability to gather intelligence, coordinate instantly, and strike with accuracy. Their primary weapon system is the modified Mavic 3 drone. Originally designed for civilian use, these drones are small, quiet, and easily overlooked. Shadow Swarm's engineers replaced the standard payloads with anti-armor warheads, transforming each drone into a precise and lethal asset. These modified Mavic 3s blend operator finesse with AI aiming, allowing pilots to adapt to changing conditions mid-flight while maintaining a high degree of accuracy. The drones can lock onto targets such as fuel trucks and command vehicles, delivering warheads with enough force to disable or destroy assets worth millions. Their small size and civilian appearance make them difficult for traditional air defense systems to detect or intercept. In the Kherson operation, the impact was immediate. The drones struck at critical points in the convoy, igniting fuel trucks and disabling command vehicles with minimal warning. Russian air defense networks, designed to counter larger and more predictable threats, struggled to identify the drones in time. Russian unit logs described unidentified drones striking without warning, classic Shadow Swarm MO. The confusion on the ground was evident in intercepted communications, with Russian commanders reporting only vague unmanned activity before their assets were destroyed. A key factor in Shadow Swarm's success is the integration of intelligence and communications technology. The team relies on a combination of Starlink uplinks and locally sourced reconnaissance. This allows them to collect, analyze, and disseminate targeting data quickly, often feeding precision coordinates directly to drone operators. The result is a streamlined strike process, intelligence gathered, verified, and executed in a matter of minutes. This integration of commercial satellite communications with battlefield intelligence represents a significant evolution in how small teams can operate effectively against larger forces. The cost-effectiveness of Shadow Swarm's toolkit cannot be overstated. Each drone costs a fraction of the price of a single armoured vehicle or air defence system. Yet, when deployed with skill and intelligence, these drones can inflict damage far beyond their material value. The economic logic of traditional warfare, where expensive systems dominate by sheer investment, no longer holds. Shadow Swarm shows that innovation and adaptability can outpace material superiority, especially when conventional forces are slow to adapt. Their operational pattern is deliberate. Russian unit logs described unidentified drones striking without warning. Classic Shadow Swarm Mo. These rapid targeted attacks focused on disabling fuel supplies and command elements, leaving the rest of the convoy stranded and vulnerable. By crippling fuel lines and sowing uncertainty, Shadow Swarm forced Russian forces into a defensive posture, draining both supplies and morale. The psychological effect is pronounced. Russian units must remain on constant alert, aware that a small, unseen team could strike at any moment, disrupting logistics and undermining confidence in their own defences. The emergence of units like Shadow Swarm marks a turning point in military doctrine. Decentralised, tech-savvy teams now have the capacity to achieve strategic objectives once reserved for much larger formations. Their operations are not defined by territory held or sheer numbers, but by the ability to strike precisely, withdraw quickly, and repeat the process as conditions allow. This model challenges conventional assumptions about the nature of military power and the future of conflict. As the dust settles in places like Kherson, one reality becomes clear. The ability of small, technologically proficient teams to shape outcomes on the battlefield is no longer theoretical. The implications reach far beyond a single ambush or a single war. The tools and tactics on display are accessible, adaptable, and increasingly influential in shaping how conflicts will be fought in the years ahead. The ambush in Kherson marks a pivotal shift in modern warfare. Cheap, accessible drone technology now allows small, agile teams to deliver high-impact attacks once limited to large-scale military operations. Shadow Swarm's precision shows that success hinges on innovation and adaptability, not just numbers. Yet the rise of drone warfare brings urgent ethical questions. Civilian areas, like Tiahynka, are increasingly caught in the crossfire, where indirect damage can lead to tragedy. As battlefield and backyard converge, accountability frameworks lag behind these lightning-fast strikes. Kherson's ambush shows drone warfare has entered a new era, where a handful of operators can decide the fate of entire convoys and communities. If you found this breakdown valuable, like and subscribe for more tactical analyses of modern warfare.